Hattie and I am back with a brand new speed build, which is Howl's moving castle. Now I am extremely excited to share this build with you. I have got a massive smile on my face while I'm sharing this because I am super proud of how it turned out. It was a really unusual build to create, but it's got to be my favourite castle. I absolutely adore it. I love the film and it's just amazing. If you haven't watched it, I definitely go and recommend that you watch it before you see the speed build, because otherwise you'll be thinking to yourself, what's gotten into Hattie? Seriously, this girl was creating Tudor houses about a week ago and now she's creating some crazy steampunk thing which is floating, and it's just completely out of the ordinary. But yeah, I mean, I have been testing my building boundaries at the moment, and it's something that I have been working on as well. I've been taking into account that people want to see different things. Not everybody wants to see a house every week. Not everybody wants to see the same old thing. And sometimes it's nice to mix it up a bit, even though I do tend to stick to houses rather than communal lots, which of course I will be thinking about changing that pretty soon and doing some more community builds. But yeah, I think it's an interesting build to do, and it's definitely my favourite castle. I love it to bits, and if you don't want to watch the film, that's absolutely fine. Then I would still say go and look at a picture of it, because I think you'll appreciate it, and I think you'll know what this build is all about, and you will see the whole side of the speed build. And of course you will also get to see how accurate or inaccurate I actually got it, because of course it's on The Sims, we're limited. We can't use all the objects that we used in it, and it was a shame, of course. But yeah, the build itself, I am really excited because I think for me, I was really worried initially that I was going to have to use a lot of moving objects, a lot of show hidden objects, and really, I used a lot less than I thought I would. It's still a very playable build by the end, and the interior is just so traditional. I love it. I absolutely love it. So I hope you're going to stick around for the interior because I really enjoyed doing the interior. I actually did it whilst I was on the phone to my best friend, which made it that even a little bit more special to me, because I don't know, I always have fun when I speak to her, and I don't know, I felt like my ideas were just sky high at that point, and it was just really fun. But yeah, the film was a very interesting film to watch, and I think what I like about it the most is the fact that it's not just about falling in love at first sight, and that is something that doesn't happen for a lot of people. I feel as if it happened for me, and I do believe in love at first sight, because when I met my fiance, there was definitely something there. Seriously, I mean, the first time I met him, it was like the best moment in my whole life, and I don't know, it's super cringe. But yeah, so I just feel as if, you know, Disney films take that one step too far sometimes. And even though I absolutely adore Disney and the storylines that they have with the different princesses and stuff, I feel as if what Studio Ghibli did with this film was absolutely incredible. The way that it's about unconditional love and the fact that you can fall in love with somebody, looks aside, is just amazing. And that's what I love about this film. That's why it just feels that little bit more romantic for me. When I watch it, it just makes me so sad and happy at the same time, because I love thinking about storylines like that, and it just really gets to me, you know, in a good way though, in a good way that I think about, that's what love should be portrayed as. Personally, that's how I feel. And I feel like the film itself is just such a beautiful thing to watch. In fact, I watch the film probably about once a year, maybe twice a year, something like that, just because it is my all-time favourite, or at least it's definitely up there with my all-time favourites. I also do really enjoy the other Studio Ghibli films, so Castle in the Sky I think is up there. Lots of others, lots and lots of others. And if you do have any other builds that you want me to create in a similar sort of style to this, then please let me know, because I'm definitely up for ideas. If there's something that you really like from a particular Studio Ghibli film, or a creative idea which might even not be from there, then yeah, I'd love to hear about it, and I will absolutely try my best, because I am testing my limits at the moment. I'm trying to see what I can and can't do, and at the moment I am in the mood that I really do want to try lots of different things out, and I will still have a go at something even though I probably won't be the best at it. I don't know. But yeah, so what I was doing is I was doing the BB Show Hidden Objects sheet, which is a really important sheet to use if you are thinking of doing a structure like this yourself. Of course, you don't have to use it, but I'd definitely recommend it if you do want to try a build out just like this, or maybe in a similar steampunk style. It's just a really, really handy thing to use. And I really enjoyed testing the different things and making it look as accurate as I could. Now I did struggle, and what I struggled with the most was trying to find something that was like an upside down bowl. I could have really done with something like that, but I just couldn't find one anywhere. So I spent a lot of my time just looking at different things that I could use instead of it. But even so, I actually ended up not using anything, and I just had to make do with other bits and bobs. Rotating objects would be an absolutely amazing thing, which I really hope that they'll put in, but I doubt they will. In fact, we haven't really heard anything from The Sims for a while, and I know that a lot of people are getting really frustrated and saying there's not much to do, I'm getting really bored of the game, and there's just a lot of mixed opinions at the moment, and I completely get it. I think for me, because if you really do love a game so much and you are on it all the time, I feel like it's not going to get boring for me personally. But yeah, I mean, even my limits can get tested sometimes, and I do hope that they aren't just going to let it go. They aren't just going to not publish anything. I hope that stuff will get released really, really soon, and we'll get some news on what's happening. But I do feel as if no news is worse in a way, because I'd actually prefer just for them to say, actually, we're working on something, or actually, we're not. Because I feel as if the way it's going now, it's sort of building up where people think there's something really, really big coming. And if there's not, then that is such a shame, because like it's just getting people's hopes up basically. But yeah, I mean, that's what the community's saying at the moment. That's just a general feeling on Twitter. But I'd love to know how you're feeling about the game. You know, I hope you're not getting bored of it. I hope that ideas like this or creations which are just a little bit out of the ordinary will keep you interested. I hope. I mean, for me, I'm staying interested, but that's just because I really enjoy it. What I was also doing though is I was trying to figure out the front area. I did make an early decision, which was I don't want to include too many moving object things on the inside of the build. And that's because I made a Howl's Moving Castle about 6 to 7 months ago. I never shared it to the Sims 4 gallery because it was absolutely terrible. And you wouldn't have liked it. That's all you need to know about that Howl's Moving Castle version. But everybody needs practice at something, or everybody can have practice and get better, rather, that's probably a better way to say it. But for me, it was just a matter of time, matter of practice, and putting the time and effort into this meant that I can do something like this. And I just couldn't do the old one, of course, because I hadn't spent that much time on The Sims, and sometimes time is the best thing you can have. But yeah, so I didn't, and what I did wrong with the other version is I actually put loads and loads of objects running into the walls, and it meant that I was very, very restricted when it came to doing the interior of the build, so I definitely didn't want to do it with this one. The build itself though does actually look quite small compared to what you would imagine a castle to be like in terms of size. I would say that Howl's Moving Castle to me doesn't seem that big, and that's because looking at all the objects that are involved in it, I don't think the actual house inside would be that big, but of course I have no idea. I don't think that it's ever been recreated, which is such a shame. I would actually love maybe a theme park somewhere to take the project on and actually make one. It would just be a really amazing thing, and of course it probably wouldn't move because they probably wouldn't be able to do that. But just the idea of having a structure which you can actually walk through and explore, I would love that idea, and I think it would just be an amazing, amazing thing. So I hope that at some point somebody will, but of course I don't even know if that's happened. What I was doing at this point is I was creating Calcifer, who's actually the fire in Howl's Moving Castle. He's a fire demon, and he is the legs, the eyes of the castle, or at least that's what I believe him to be. And he runs the whole place, he keeps it all going, and that's what makes it move. So that's what I was trying to create at the front there. Of course, it's not going to look exactly like Calcifer, especially as we don't have all the items for him. But what I did do is I used those really, really strange jet things, and I put them there just for his eyes, and they do actually stick. In fact, this build will look exactly the same as it is from the Sims 4 gallery, because what I did before I quit the game is I actually tested it. I saved it as a new file, and then I re-added it back, and it all stays exactly like this. So fingers crossed it will look exactly this way. So that would be pretty interesting. But yeah, so what I was also doing is I was just adding some features around, and I was just finishing off. I mean, it was a matter of just trying things out. It was always going to be a matter of this and just trying new things, and it was something that I was of course aware of that I had to do. And I did have a lot of fun doing it. I also put lots and lots of windows around it to make it look as if all these places were separate buildings. I thought that would be a really pretty look to it. I also thought about ivy, but I actually didn't use any ivy in this build, or at least I can't remember that I did. I don't think I did. I was then just experimenting with different objects that I could add to create the sides of it. Now the thing about Howl's Moving Castle is it actually has two versions of the build itself. So you have the version which is a very, very tall steampunk build, and it's very, very big, and it's got loads and loads of pots and pans and junk and everything that it's picked up in between its travels. And then you have the version which is near the end, which is when it looks a little bit prettier and it's got loads of bushes and it actually looks smaller during the end. I don't know why it does, but I think that it does shrink with all the junk that falls off it, and I think you get a pretty looking castle by the end with more plants, more garden areas. I did try to recreate the second option a little bit more than the first, and that's because we didn't have the wall capacity to do the first one, I don't think anyway. I think it would have been a lot more difficult, and I think to properly recreate it, I would have had to make the build a tiny bit smaller than this as well. And I like the size that it is. It gave me enough room to do exactly what I wanted to do on the interior, and it left me some room to have a lovely garden area and a picnic spot for them. So I think the interior is going to be really, really cute for that, and I have already done it, so I know exactly how it turns out. The reason because I am pre-recording a lot of my videos, and that is because I'm going away and I'm getting married. So I don't know whether you will watch this after I'm married or before I'm getting married. I have no idea how it's actually going to work. I'm going to start scheduling my videos pretty soon, so they'll all be coming out at a set time. And if you have noticed it already happening, then you could check Twitter, because on Twitter I'll put a post saying, by the way, my videos will be coming out at this time every day, so that will be what will be happening. What I was doing at this point is I was putting some of those shelves around, and the reason why I was doing that is because we can't have a freeze around the bottom there, and it is a little bit annoying how we can't have that, because it would be a really, really handy thing to have. But I thought instead of having something else, I mean, there's not much I could have really put there, but instead I just put a fence around, or not a fence, layer of shelving around, because I thought that it made it look good, and also it took that horrible, ugly grey line from it, because I hate when grey turns up in the game and you can't really get rid of it very easily. It's something that I definitely struggled with figuring out, especially as I was first starting to get into building, but I think eventually you think of brand new ideas about how to get rid of things, and that is just one of the ways that I did get rid of that step, so I was pretty happy that I did. I'd made the legs by this point as well, because I definitely wanted to put some legs in, and I would imagine the legs to look like that because they'd actually be floating behind, and that has happened in the build. I think when the build does float at the end as well, because it does, I think it does. I might be getting it confused with Castle in the Sky here, but I think it does, and I think the legs would be ready for takeoff, which would be a really, really cool feature for the build, and it's just something that looks quite realistic, and I love the idea of just catching it in time. I love that, and I think the film as well, it really is a little bit about that. I mean, it's about catching the castle at the right time. Sophie and the Scarecrow and her new friends were running after it at one point, and that stuck in my mind because I was thinking, how amazing would it be if that was just how the castle was? You almost missed it almost every single time. So I loved that, and I stuck with that idea, and that's why I put the legs in that way. Another really interesting thing about the build, and something that I definitely loved, was when I went onto live mode, putting the little bits and bobs of steampunky things round. I actually put some fans on the bottom, which I think you'll see coming up in a little bit. But what happened was, when I pressed play, they actually have a slight animation which looks amazing. So if you do use this build, if you do want to go and download it, it will be on my Sims 4 gallery account, and you can go and find it off there by typing in HattySims. And if you do have it in your own game, I think that it will look really, really good from a playable point of view, and it's a really interesting build anyway. Even if you wanted to play with it maybe for a couple of days or something, I still think that it would be a really, really nice thing to have, because it's just different. It's just different to any ordinary house, and it's just something that I just really wanted to do. So yeah, I was definitely happy with how the fans looked, and I hope that you like them as well. I haven't actually tried out the chimneys yet, but I can definitely imagine that when you could light the fires, all the chimneys will smoke up, and that will just give a really, really pretty steampunk look to the build, which I'm actually very, very excited about exploring. I was then just adding the final features to the build, and one of the final features was of course the landscaping. I wanted to make sure the landscaping looked very subtle and it also fitted in with what's around it, which of course is going to be a bit tricky, especially as there is a modern house right next to it. But I actually think that if you did want to make it accurate, then you could just move the buildings and you could actually make it so that this is the only one on this plot of land and you can't actually see anything else in sight. And I actually think that that would make it a lot more accurate. You could also put it in Windenburg if you wanted to, on the 64x64 on the Bluffs Island. That would be a pretty cool idea if you did want to make it look as if it was naturally there and it had fallen into something. That would be a really amazing idea, and if you do use it, I'd love to see some screenshots of it on Twitter, because I love seeing what people do with my builds after I've made it. And if you do want to recreate your own steampunk family, then I'd love to see them as well, even if it's just a picture or a little storyline, backstory, whatever it is. I love that. I actually love hearing stories like that, and it actually really makes me motivated for my next build, because I don't know, I just love seeing what people do with my houses, and knowing that people do actually use them and enjoy them makes me want to build so much more than I do. But yeah, so what I was doing is I was just adding the last bits and bobs to the rocks there. I definitely wanted to enlarge some rocks, and I thought that that would make it look a lot more natural. It would also make it look a little bit like it was a rock pool of some sort, especially with the water there. I just thought that that was a really unique look to it. I was then just putting around some random bits of landscaping. To be completely honest, I did not feel like doing landscaping at this point. I was feeling too creative to waste my time doing bits like this. So what I did is I just put it round just really quickly. And it is a little bit odd in the way that it's not all going to go together perfectly, but it's supposed to be the wild. It's not supposed to be a really pretty shaped place, which has been really had pride taken in it. It's not supposed to be like that. It's actually just supposed to be the wild there. But that is the end of the build. So I really hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you all for part 2. Thank you so much for watching, and I will speak to you all soon.